This is a GCSE biology presentation looking at metabolism. To get started, all you have to do is compare aerobic respiration with anaerobic respiration. Pause the presentation, come up with as many statements as you can. Remember, when you're comparing, you have to mention both things. So in aerobic, this happens, in anaerobic, this happens. Pause the presentation. When you're ready, you can restart and check your answers. So the main comparisons between aerobic and anaerobic are the fact that in aerobic we have oxygen involved. In anaerobic there is no oxygen involved. They both produce different things. In aerobic, carbon dioxide and water is produced. In anaerobic, it's lactic acid, or it can be ethanol and carbon dioxide depending on the organism that's doing the anaerobic respiration. Aerobic always produces a large amount of energy, whereas anaerobic only produces a small amount of energy. And aerobic occurs in a mitochondria, where anaerobic occurs in cytoplasm. In this lesson, we're going to define the term metabolism, and we're going to look at specific examples that they could ask you about in the exam relating to metabolism. To get started, you need to memorize the definition. One of the most likely questions they'll ask you is to define the term metabolism. And it is the sum, that's the total, of all reactions in a cell or in the body. So it's the sum of all reactions in a cell or in a body. Now there's several examples that you need to be aware of, and these are named examples on the AQI specification. We're going to look at each one. The first one we've already talked about in a different presentation, looking at photosynthesis and the use of glucose. And in plants, glucose can be used for a number of things. It can be firstly used to make cellulose, and cellulose is used to form the cell wall, which is an important structural part of plant cells. The glucose can also be converted into starch, and starch is the main insoluble material that plants store glucose as. In terms of animals, animals get glucose. Of course, they don't produce their own by photosynthesis like plants do. They have to eat it. And when they eat it, excess glucose is stored as a substance called glycogen, and glycogen is often stored in the liver. The next thing you need to know about in terms of metabolism is how lipids are formed. And lipids are made up of glycerol and 3 fatty acid molecules. So to make a lipid, you need a glycerol and 3 fatty acid, and if you break a lipid up, it is broken up into a glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acids. Metabolism can also include the synthesis of proteins. Remember, synthesis means to make. So we're making proteins from amino acids, and those amino acids are formed using glucose and nitrate ions. So we start with glucose and nitrate ions, and we can use them to build our amino acids. And then the body can put those amino acids together into long chains, and those long chains are known as proteins. We can also have chemical reactions where proteins are broken down by enzymes back into amino acids again, and then are rearranged to form new substances. And of course, the metabolism involves one of the most important processes of all in the form of respiration. Remember, respiration has its own presentation. Please do go and check that out if you're not familiar with the concept. But respiration is a chemical reaction in which glucose and oxygen is turned into water and carbon dioxide. Now we have mentioned aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and there are variations in it. Again, there are separate presentations for both aerobic and anaerobic. Please go through them again if you need to. Most importantly, respiration is a chemical process that results in a release of energy. And it's that release of energy that provides the energy for all the other processes that occur inside the body. The last thing we're going to look at is the breakdown of proteins into a substance called urea. And urea, of course, is the main substance. It's the yellowy colored liquid that you find in urine. Remember, urine is what you actually wee out. The urea is the substance inside your cells that is produced as proteins are broken down. Remember, proteins are long sequences, chains of amino acids. And when they're broken down in the liver. The liver then converts the amino acids into a substance called urea. Urea will travel through the blood until it gets to the kidney, and the kidney it is filtered out. The urea is then stored in the bladder and then removed from the body in the form of waste. To finish off, what you should do is use the model in front of you to build a diagram of metabolism and all the different bits of information you need to know about metabolism into one display piece. And then you can put a tick beside each bit of information as you're able to recall it from memory.